Hello. Is anybody there? So I tried a new way of going live today. Let me know, first of all, if you guys hear me and see me okay, and then we'll jump right into it. We'll have a bit of a structure today in the presentation. No answers. Is there anybody there? There we go. People are joining. Give me a comment. Let me know about the sound. Let me know about the audio quality. I'm going to wait just a few seconds. There we go. All right. I'm going to have to mute this because all this noise. All right. Nice to see you again. Oh, I like this comment here. All right. So, all right, everything's cool. Some people were complaining post video that the audio wasn't clear. Let me know if the audio, I pushed up the audio volume a little bit. All right, so hi, did you change the mic volume? Yes, I did. How does it sound? Is the mic loud enough? Not too loud? All right, good. Hello, Nadir. How are you doing? Toronto, sister city. Montreal. Toronto is the big city in Canada. What do we got now? We got 61 people. We're coming in. So, let's see what we got here. Bruce Lee, you got to click on Bruce Lee. Learning from Master Miyagi as his web design mentorship. Looking to make 100K after coronavirus. Not a problem. Hello, love from India. Hey, how you doing? How you going? All right, Newcastle. Hello, Shagar Reddy, excuse me. Glasgow, cool. I recognize some of these faces. All right, cool. Utah, very cool. I assume you're a Bruce Lee fan. Cheers from Macedonia, Europe. Thanks for everything, Stefan. You're doing a great job. Keep up these lives up. Thanks, I appreciate it. Feedback, good and bad, it's great. Of course, I do prefer good, as you might imagine. It's perfect, not complaining. I just had trouble hearing you without headphones. Oh, can you hear me now clearly without headphones? I jacked the volume up. I could jack it up even louder if need be. Let me know. I just don't want to garble. I don't want to peak the audio so it's unclear for people. Your streams gather more audience than one experienced streamer's streams. All right. Hi from Bulgaria. All right, how are we doing here? Okay, when we hit 100, I'll jump into the first subject, which is Java 14. Just a quick overview. Then I got a few other things, and then we're going to do the Q&A as usual. I'm hoping this will only last about a half an hour. I'm trying to cut down my streams from 50, 60 minutes to a half an hour. We'll see. Ruby joke, I don't know. New Jersey. How you guys doing down there? How's the lockdown for you guys in Jersey? All right. We'll get to the questions once I cover the first subject. We're not at quite 100 yet. We're at 93. I want to get us at least to 100. Typically, we're getting like 200 to 300 people watching a stream. And so that's why I'm waiting till we get halfway there. So, Ruby is the joke. It's not bad, actually. I'll highlight that one. Let's see. Are taxes in healthcare in Canada as bad as we Americans say? No, but we do not have universal healthcare in the sense that you have paid options, free options. I have a membership to a private clinic. It's inexpensive and it takes the pressure off. I can get tests very quickly. The thing about Canadian healthcare is you get amazing care if you have a critical situation. No question, I've experienced that myself. The problem is elective procedures and surgeries. That you can wait a long time for, but that's where you have the secondary clinics that you go to. My opinion, from a pure economics point of view, you'd probably best to have some sort of catastrophic universal healthcare, catastrophic, so that people don't go bankrupt. And this will allow for more business in the US to flourish. amongst other things, besides other potential arguments. But I don't want to get into it. I don't know all the details. All right, so I'm going to jump into this first subject here. Let me just load this up. All right, so as some of you know, I'm an old Java developer going back to the 1990s, although I'm not actively coding Java these days, but I do peek in every once in a while. So I figured I'd read this update here, Java 14, give you my 2 cents. Same old arguments, same old problems with Java. At least they're trying to address it. Interesting. I'm going to cover that in another article. I noticed something similar in C++. C++ and Java, the communities are starting to recognize that that speed of write time is very important. So they're starting to address that issue. So let me just go back to Java here. Out with the old and in with the new as Java 14 arrives, bringing in the first project Panama. Panama is a way for you can access native libraries, which some people will complain about because one of the main selling points of Java is that you wouldn't have to worry about the underlying operating system. The old sales line was write once, run anywhere. Write your software once, one language, Java, it will run on any operating system. So apparently Panama could break that, although I haven't looked into that, so that's the complaint. But that aside, let me just read a couple of bullet points. I'll give you the highlights, give you my 2 cents, and then we'll move on to the next thing. So Oracle this week released JDK 14. Its reference implementation of the Java 14 specification. Java, Big Red claims, continues to be the most preferred programming language among software developers. You got to watch it with surveys, by the way. You got all these surveys, and depending who's conducting the survey, where they're conducting it, how they're asking the questions, you can get totally different results from surveys. So always consider all surveys, take them with a grain of salt. But anyway, so this is something new. It's Oracle, before I jump into the article, Oracle has been accelerating the update of Java. Some people complain about it, some people love it. But let's just go on here. Java 14 shows up 6 months after Java 13, reflecting the accelerated cadence adopted to move the code away from multi-year development cycles to match the pace of other modern software projects. George Saab, VP of Development at Oracle for Oracle's Java platform, cited the release as validation of the shift to the 6-month release cadence adopted back in Java with Java 9. He says, not only does JDK 14 have a number of enhancements that will improve developer productivity, that's the first thing he cites, right? Let me get this here. One of the things I keep saying in all my vlogs, when you're choosing a technology, a language, a stack, whatever, speed of write time to me now trumps speed of runtime, meaning a language, a framework should allow you to quickly develop apps, more important than how fast they run at runtime. Why? Because computers, servers are just getting so fast. So let me just continue. Not only does JDK 14 have a number of enhancements that will improve developer productivity, but we're also seeing the first major content to come from projects like Project Panama with a foreign memory access API enhancement and continued improvements from Project Amber with pattern matching, et cetera, et cetera. I won't get into the nerd details. So I think the takeaway here and the lead was the fact that they're looking to enhance productivity. Just in case, we'll just cover it quickly. Project Panama is an open JDK project to make Java virtual machine accessible via non-Java APIs so developers can make native C++ calls, for example, from the JVM. Anyhow, so Java 14 includes 60 new features. You can look them up yourself. I'll put a link to this document under the video once I'm done streaming this. So let's see. We got pattern matching for instance of. That's interesting. Instance of is something that allows you to, in Java, to check to see whether a particular bit of information is of a certain object type. It's used in, anyway, I won't get into it, but it's been around forever, bad. So we got no pointer exceptions. That's interesting. Switching, new switching, deprecator solars, blah, blah, blah. Okay, or else I'll continue, sorry. There are a number of features. I read this before, so I'm just going over this. This freaks me out. There are a number of features that have been removed because they are no longer supported or obsolete, like Netscape.javascript.js object get window method. This is interesting. I don't know. Like Netscape hasn't been around as a web browser for 20,000 years. It's amazing. Something I also talk about. When it comes to languages, they'll deprecate something, which means they say it's still in the language, and deprecation is used in all the languages. So what that is they'll take a part of the language. Like in this case, it was Netscape.javascript.js object. Now, they said when something is deprecated, that means say, don't use it anymore because eventually it will be removed. From my experience, it takes 10,000 years before they actually remove anything that's deprecated. So just because they deprecate something, don't go crazy. Oh my God, we got to remove this out of our app. Oh no. As chances are, it will stay in your app for about 10,000 years. Long after you're dead, it will still operate in the language. Not always the case, but many times. So that's the key. That's the point about deprecation. Anyway, let me go back on. This is something also freaked me out here. By using a single line of code, okay, that's not it. That's not the one. This is the one that freaked me out. Java 14 also includes text blocks, still in preview after its introduction in Java 13. I can't believe it took Java 13 to get text blocks. That's unbelievable. Text blocks allows developers to create multi-line string literals, mostly without escaping new line characters, that provides automatic or specified control over formatting. This is crazy that it took this long for this key bit of functionality to be implemented in the Java world. It's unbelievable. Like just about every other programming language, all the modern ones, all the higher level ones like JavaScript, Python, PHP, I'm sure Ruby, but who knows? They implement this type of functionality. And I'm flabbergasted because, a lot of times when we're writing apps, we're manipulating strings, right? Strings of data, just chunks of text. So there you go. That's my my little shtick on Java 14. I'll cover the C++ thing another day. And yeah, sure, I think that's about it for now. Yeah, that's pretty much it for now. All right, so I guess it's now time for the Q&A section of this whole presentation. How are we doing here? We're doing 12 minutes in, not bad. All right, so let's jump into some Q&A in about 2 seconds. Tea. Now, before I do that, I want to bring up, people ask me about books once in a while, books. If I had to choose a book that I would, if you're an intermediate level coder, developer rather, I would probably choose this book right here. It's an old book going back to 1999, and it's specific to Java, but even if you're not a Java coder, this book will come in pretty handy. It's pretty cool. It teaches you how to take your coding skills to a whole new level. It's a seminal book, highly recommended. I'll give you a chunk of, I just want to read one paragraph from a chapter very quickly to give you an idea of how much knowledge is in this book. Now, it's chapter 4 about building tests, but he says he opens the value of self-testing code. Okay. He says, if you look at how most programmers spend their time, you find that writing code actually is quite a small fraction of that time. Some time is spent figuring out what ought to be going on. Some time is spent designing, but most of the time is spent debugging. I'm sure every reader can remember long hours of debugging, often long into the night. Every programmer can tell a story of a bug that took a whole day or more to find. Fixing the small bug is usually pretty quick, but finding it is a nightmare. Anyway, he goes on from there. So there's a quick example of how this book is teaching you how to refactor, which is basically cleaning up old code and making it better, but it gives you a lot of real-world experience. So I haven't read this book in a long time, but it's such an important book. If you're an intermediate level programmer, if you want to take your game to a higher level in terms of being really good at writing code, you get into stuff like that. If you're totally new to code, then I recommend this book. This is my book on web design, and this is for total beginners. Teaches you HTML5, CSS3, and the web, request response model. It's a complement to my courses, but anyway, there's my book. I had to plug my own book, right? All right, so let's go. I'll start answering a few questions here. Hi, Stefan. Node.js or Python Flask? Oof. That's a hard one. Again, it depends on the project and depends on the job opportunities for you, you know. AC0011A, I have that one. I've read it and totally agree with Stef. So there you go. Endorsement from AC. Get this book if you want to become a master coder. This is like a programmer. It's such a good book. It's all Java, but applies to everything. Let's see what we got here. 14, I just started to study 8 and 10. There you go. It's just minor updates, you know. They're really going quick now. Again, if you look at the comments in that article, and I'll link to it after I finish this live podcast. Of course, you're going to have some people are hating on it. Some people love it, as usual. More Hamza, excellent book indeed. There you go. Java is breathing its last days. Well, I think that Java is going to be, it's like the old man who refuses to die. It's going to stay around for a long time, but I don't see new development in Java, you know, just all the legacy stuff, which means a ton of work because there's so much legacy Java out there. Remember, I just did a live stream where talking about how, not Node, COBOL, there we go, how COBOL, that 60 or 50, 60-year-old programming language, they're struggling looking for COBOL developers. So you think Java, which is a young noobling language relative to COBOL, you think Java's going anywhere, you have another thing coming. Well, I just missed that question. It just disappeared and it flowed. Oh, well, what are you going to do? All right. Hey, Stef, is Java the new COBOL? You know what? I could live with that. I think that's possible. Let's darken this image a little bit. There we go. Let's see what else we got here. Software engineer versus developer, just semantics. Well, it depends who you talk to. Engineers tend to work on low-level stuff, basic concepts down to the hardware. They're taught the basic concepts and techniques so that they can start doing all kinds of different things. Developer is more pragmatic, up-to-date, perhaps you can argue, working with frameworks and so on to just get stuff out. Oh, let's see what we got here. What's the transition from React Native to React on the web? You mean React.js? I don't know. I haven't used these libraries, but I imagine it's not huge. I think it's just understanding the components, right? Understanding what you're interacting with underneath React in those both instances. Is backend harder than front end? Depends who you talk to, right? The front end, the tricky thing is the CSS and learning the front end libs like React or Vue. Backend, I think there's more money in backend overall, and there's more flexibility in terms of career. But you know, it depends who you talk to. Okay, what do we got here? Do you ever see Java being re-engineered entirely? Never. No chance. There's too much invested in it. Don't get me wrong, Java is like this huge beast, got a lot of power, but no. What do we got here? What are your thoughts on VR, AR learning C# and Unity? Virtual reality, augmented reality, just in case somebody doesn't know. I see them as niche technologies. It looks like it would be a lot of fun, of course, but how many people are implementing this? I think if you had learned it, you'd probably have to go look for jobs in larger companies if they are there. It's very niche. All right, what do we got here? Hey, Stefan, learn Bootstrap or stick with CSS Grid and wait for compatibility? I would learn the basics. See, once you understand CSS, to learn Grid, 20 minutes, right? And you may have to learn Bootstrap because so many sites use Bootstrap. So if you're going to be updating a site, you're probably going to have to learn Bootstrap. Again, fall back to my basic principle. Learn on a need to nerd basis. I got to put out that video so I can refer people to that. What's this? I'm not sure what this, I'm just curious what you mean. Is the book Code Complete 2 still relevant? I'm not sure what you mean by that question, Ari. What else? We're going to continue here. There we go. Stef, I started as a front-end developer, but I find it difficult and want to switch to UX/UI. Can I be both UX/UI and front-end developer, or would you recommend this, or I must pick one path? There's a lot of crossover there, right? There's a lot of crossover. No, again, let the job opportunities help you with that. If you find that front-end development is not for you, maybe it's just because you're still learning it, or maybe you've tried for a few months, or 4 or 5 months, and you just had enough. If you've only been doing it for a month or two, you might want to give it a little bit more time so it sinks in properly. But yeah, you can definitely transition. Just work with your employer or look at the opportunities that are out there and make your decision based on that, right? Ahmed Sadiq says, Stefan Mishik, why Flask not as popular as Django? Probably because Django's been around longer. First to market, as they say, has a huge impact in terms of popularity. CSS Grid is already pretty well supported. This is true. Also, it's more important to use the right CSS feature. Flexbox is right choice 90% of the cases. Yeah, I can see that. Yeah, I remember when we were putting together StudioWeb 5, I don't know, many months ago, and we almost went with Grid Flexbox, but I decided not to because there's still a small percentage of browsers that there may have been compatibility issues, and I didn't want to do little hacks and stuff, so I just said just use Bootstrap because it's going to be backward compatible and forward compatible for years. But there's some truth to that. It's not an either or. You can do both, right? Because learning Grid and Flexbox is not exactly a difficult thing to do. Hey, Stefan, please make a series on code refactoring and best practices. We would love to hear your thoughts on it. I think I've done stuff in the past. I would have to look, though. Let's see what we got here. Khalid. I feel anxious, depressed. What can I do as a full stack developer to improve my life next to the coding struggle? Well, first of all, you want to have a balanced life. This is more a psychological issue. So make sure you get in shape, you eat well, you sleep well, you drink lots of water, avoid crappy food. That, believe me, is going to have an impact in terms of your psychology. Just balance out your work life and your personal life. There you go. That is my first recommendation. And just write code. Just understand as you write more and more code, you will get better. And as you get better, your anxieties will drop. It's just time. It's just like working out. You just got to put in time and the muscles will grow. Which backend is the easiest coming from no experience in programming? I would say PHP, just because you can do rough and tumble, dirty PHP without having to learn an MVC framework, which could be very daunting. They have it in PHP, Laravel, but you can just upload cheap PHP pages that starts getting you into the whole backend thing. So that's my advice to you. There we go. Hey, Steph, would you say that the newer language like Kotlin, Swift, etc., easier to learn are ways to reduce the hurdle becoming a developer, thus reducing long-term salary growth potential? No, it's more about productivity. It's more about productivity. development companies are more concerned about finding people more than anything else. That's the problem. It's not so much about trying to drive their salaries down for the most part. Although some people would argue when in the US, when they're bringing in people from overseas to do the coding, they're reducing costs. There might be some truth to that. Also, when they're sending people over. But the biggest problem that they have now in the development world is finding decent people. Let's see what Tomas has to say. Stefan, do you think that one can get some freelance jobs in Java Android? Potentially as something on the side. I'm also thinking of web, but in Poland, it looks like small business prefer Facebook than own sites. You may want to look around, double check into that. You may want to look, see what they're doing with WordPress as well. Just start knocking on doors, go to Google Maps, check out local businesses, see what they want. Maybe you can make good money on the side just helping them implement their Wix sites, as an example. All right, we'll see what we got here. All right, Michael. I'm 17 right now, looking to go into a low-level dev. Is there any money in it? Low-level dev. Of course there's money. There's money in almost all development. All I hear is people talking about web. I get anxious. There's money in all types of development. What you choose depends on what you like to do. Yeah, there's more freelance opportunity, though, in the web space, that's for sure. All right, so I'll put this. Alexander says, I picked Dart versus Kotlin. All right. Are you asking? Oh, you want me to say Dart versus Kotlin? I haven't compared the languages, They're both getting good reviews. Dart is used, I think, I don't know if it's only Flutter, but that's where it's used, in Kotlin. So we're talking native versus non-native mobile development. I tend to lean towards non-native. That's the first thing I would look at, whether it be Flutter, React Native, or PWA, etc., versus going native. I've talked about this many times in the past. I am learning Java right now. Which language would you add more to help me get jobs in future? Java's great. Python would be a good secondary language because it's used all over the place. So let's answer a few more here. After learning the basics, is it best to use frameworks or vanilla on freelance projects? If you can use a framework, then use a framework. That's the first thing that I would suggest. The only framework I would not use would be Ruby on Rails. I did that for this guy here. All right. Just joking. Mean or LAMP or other type of stack for future demand. They're all going to be around for a long time, If you don't know my philosophy, I look at stacks and languages as just tools that I can access. And I'll just pivot to which one I want to, depending on the needs of the job. You know what I mean? So choose what you like and check out what the local job opportunities are. All right, let's see what this guy Dan says. I like code. I'm fascinated with the web dev field, but I get so bored after coding over for a few hours. How do you know when you're cut out to code or not? Well, a few hours is enough to code. I think once you start doing real projects where you see your code actually do something, that makes it much more interesting than just doing tutorials or sitting at home. I don't know if you're actually working, but in the field, it's not quite. Let me see what he said here. So I'm not sure. He says, I'm fascinated with the web dev field. You're fascinated, but you get bored after a few hours. Well, you stop after a few hours, do something else. There's many other areas within the coding world that you can explore: architecture, design, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. How much should an entry-level freelance developer expect to make their first year, and how do taxes work when working in this type of field? Well, taxes are always very specific to where you happen to live in the world. So I can say in Canada, the simple business structure is sole proprietorship, and that means you basically your own business. So you are taxed as an individual at the individual tax rate, which is higher than if you were a corporation. If you set yourself up as a corporation, then you're taxed at a lower level and you got other advantages. But the problem with that, if it's a problem, is that there's much more of a cost to it in terms of accounting. It costs more to set up as well, but it had the big cost is over the years is the accounting cost. So there has to be some volume. So and again, this is Canada, perhaps North America. It's different in different parts of the world. So you should be able to talk to a bookkeeper or an accountant in your part of the world to get that information. And so there is a time typically when you have a certain amount of volume, meaning a certain amount of sales are coming in, then it makes sense at some point to go in corporation for tax benefits. One of the big advantages of being a freelancer is the tax advantages, in that you're going to be taxed less than if you were an employee, but you have to be more responsible with your money then. You have to be more on top of what you are doing. So as a beginning freelancer, you're going to be making less, but if you pursue the freelance business properly, step by step, you'll be making more and more and more. You will have more freedom and more choice. And within a year or so, you can start making as much or more money as somebody working for somebody, but you have all the freedom and all the control. And if you implement good working practices, implement good frameworks, good workflows rather, there we go. If you implement that in a reasonable period of time, you could be making more money than you could working for somebody and have a lot more freedom. But you got to pay that piper. At first, you got to work a little bit the first year, so making a little less, but it's worth it in the end, trust me, because 1 year passes pretty quickly. How are we doing for time? All right, 30 minutes. So we're going to start winding this down. Let's see, we got one. Let's see what we got here. Hey, Stefan, recently furloughed from company last week. Based on your advice, I'm interested in Laravel and freelance, but also looking for full-time options. Wow, being furloughed might be the best thing that ever happened to you. So, take it as an opportunity, jump into it, learn, put up your site, start talking to people, knocking on doors, let the market guide you, and you will be fine. If you put minimal effort, if you know code, there's no reason you can't be making a very good living or a great living. Kyle says, is blockchain development also very niche? I believe it is. The use of solidified truffle, ganache, and writing smart contracts. I don't know much about blockchain, except I've just peripherally read it. I think it is a niche tech. It's a type of database. You'll see any new technology when it comes out. You have a hype cycle where there's a lot of people say, that's the future, and then it drops off and kind of settles. I'm not saying blockchain is going anywhere, but I don't think it's going to be huge like other technologies. I'll give you an example. Object-oriented databases. Object-oriented databases were going to be the game changer. Everybody's going crazy for them 15, 20 years ago. They're out there, but man, they're rare. Okay. Do you recommend working with Kiva? I've never looked at it, but I'm going to be looking at it if you want to. When I have a chance, and I'm going to give you my 2 cents here. There we go. So Kiva is an open source library for rapid application development across platforms. So it's a Python thing. I'm going to look at that, and I'll do a podcast on it at some point. Here we go. Do I need to learn data structures and algorithms for change from front end to full stack? No. Here we go. Stefan, how much should an entry-level freelancer developer expect to make their first year, and how do taxes work when working in this type of field? It depends where you live in terms of how much you're going to make, and the taxes as well. If you're in San Francisco, the tax is going to be, and how much you earn, and the tax will be different than if you're in Bulgaria, right? So you just got to look at your local market and decide figure out what is going on there. All right, let's see what we got here. Hey, Stefan, I work as a DevOps engineer in my company. What is the career goal which I can have? Is ML AI? Can I look for the math required for coding? For right now, a lot of ML AI, there is math involved. Although I'm talked to a friend of mine who's doing his master's degree in AI, ML, and he says that there's two paths now. There's a path where you implement an AI, if you will. We'll call it a library, and you don't really have to do all the math. And then there's the guys who are doing all the research with the heavy-duty math. So it depends on what area of AI you jump into. All right, what's going on? Let's see what we got. Last couple of questions because we're at 35 minutes. That's an interesting question. Danny, do you think, given the times, there is going to be an increased acceleration towards automation of some jobs? Thoughts? Businesses are going to be doing it no matter what. I think what you're going to see because of COVID is people are going to start saying, hey, maybe we can work from home, and a lot of employers are going to start going, wait a second, we've had these guys working from home for a month or two, and everything's cool. We don't have to pay huge amounts of money in rent. So if you're invested in commercial real estate REITs, you might want to get out of that. What I'm saying there, I'm saying that the need for commercial office space, I imagine, is going to diminish after this because people are going to start realizing that's kind of an old way of doing things, having commercial office space. Stefan, I work full-time at a hedge fund, and recently I've been interested in coding. I really want to learn, but I work 18 hours a day and have no time. Any tips to learn faster? Yeah, just do 20 minutes a day. Just do 20. You get home, do 20 minutes. You want to just get the ball rolling, and you'll be surprised, even just 20 minutes a day, how much you'll learn. If you set up this artificial limitation that you have to spend 2 hours a day or 4 hours a day to learn, you'll never get anywhere. But trust me, if you spend 20 minutes a day, it will make a difference. Rajel, hi, Stef. Hey, how you doing? All right. Let's see. I'll do one last one here because we're at 37 minutes. Let's see what we got. We got messages coming in. What's the name of your second YouTube channel? I think I have a link below. I haven't posted in a few weeks. I've been so busy with things, but I do intend to post to it. Then the other channel is going to be strictly about the business end of things, code and so on, whereas this is more career and news about technology, comments about technology. I see drums in the back. What's your all-time favorite band? That depends on my mood at the time. I like Led Zeppelin. I like the Beatles. I like Miles Davis. I like the band. I like Amy Winehouse. It depends on my mood. Depends on what I want to listen to. The hardest to play, of course, is John Bonham, Led Zeppelin. Difficult patterns in his drumming, so that's cool. All right. Let's see what else we got here. Stefan, would you agree that some people are cut out to be great developers and some are not? I would modify that. I would say some people are great at backend, some are great at front end, some are great at specification, some are great at architecture and design. I'll close with this story. So somebody I knew was very highly experienced coder, very good. And so I hired them to build a system, to lead that. And so they built something, and I gave them a rough specification, and I assumed that since they were so experienced, but I didn't have to go into details. I didn't have to micromanage. So he came out with the first alpha, and it was a disaster. The alpha code was a disaster. So if I made this analogy, if I said to him, I need you to design a car for me. I make it a sports car, make sure it has 20-inch tires, make sure it has at least a 300 horsepower engine, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So he came back to me with a car, and I got in the car, and I go, where's the steering wheel? And he goes, you didn't tell me to put in a steering wheel. I said, it's a car. I said, where are the brakes? Oh, they're in the back seat. Why are the brakes in the back seat? Well, you didn't tell me you want them in the front. I said, it's a car. But on the other hand, if I would have told him to develop the steering wheel, just develop the steering wheel, he was fantastic at doing that. The steering wheel would be amazing. But to have him build the whole system, not too good. So both types of development is development, but it's two different types of roles, right? Somebody very good at architecture, big picture. Some people very good at a detailed, maybe creating a certain module, for example. So, you might be really good at back-end structure. You might be really good at front end. So it depends on what you're doing. So you have to figure out where your strength lies, and then you take it from there. Anyway, I hope that makes sense, guys. So this was so many questions. Ramble on. Yeah. Good times, bad times. These are good songs. Yeah. Led Zeppelin tunes, by the way. Led Zeppelin tunes. All right, guys. I'm being overexposed in the camera. The light is changing. So with that, I will let you go. 40 minutes. And we will talk to you soon. This is a 2-stream day, by the way. So that's it.